Hi everyone, thanks for joining another episode of the 5-Minute Modeler, where we provide tips and tricks in a condensed format. If you haven't already, please subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified of future episodes. Today we're going to be going down to the layout and we're going to be working on a backdrop scene. Today we're going to do a little work on our backdrop here, continuing our series on the backdrops. A couple of weeks ago we painted some awesome clouds here. You can see those in the backdrop there. And one of the things I like to do with backdrops is put my buildings, instead of flat across the building, similar to this one here, I like to put them at angles so that they're a little bit more visually interesting and not just the typical flat, sitting there up against the backdrop. So that's one thing that I do. Today what we're going to do is we're going to be working on a retaining wall. And this is another way that you can add some visual interest to your layout. Here I've mocked up the backdrop as I think it's going to go. To the right of the backdrop here I have the train shed for the passenger station, and then to the left I have an empty space, and then as you can see, there's some buildings and some other work that needs to be done. But for this section here, I'm going to take this section here, and I've got a retaining wall from Woodland Scenics and some backdrops. They're called rail scene backdrops, and they're no longer available from a manufacturer, but they are available sometimes on the internet, on eBay and things like that. But I really like these. They're a nice scale. These aren't glued up yet. I'll show you how we do that, but this is kind of the general layout. I think it looks pretty good. What do you think? So what I'm using here is these Woodland Scenics retaining walls, and I bought these off the internet, I think on eBay for a couple of dollars. I don't remember exactly, but they've been sitting around for a while and I haven't quite figured out what to do with them. And then as I got to working on this backdrop, it made sense to me to create kind of a retaining wall. The one thing that I'm doing a little bit different is I'm actually turning these things horizontally so that they create a longer retaining wall, but not as tall. So let me show you here what I'm going to do. You may have noticed that along the back there was a little bit of a curve. Actually, I'm going to glue these to a piece of cardboard. I'm going to glue them to that so that there's a little bit of flexibility in there. And then if I ever have to tear the layout, or when I have to tear the layout down, I'll be able to save that whole wall as one piece, hopefully, and use it somewhere else. I've already painted and weathered these using thin washes of various earth tone colors, and finalized it with a thin wash of black diluted with some rubbing alcohol in the cracks. I used an X-Acto knife to carve the cracks into place. I'm going to use Elmer's glue to secure these because the hydrocal plaster that these are made out of is porous, as is the cardboard, so it should hold up pretty well and just be a little bit easier. It might take a couple hours to dry. The other thing that I had to do is, if you'll notice on the end here, there is no whatever they call that support structure there. So I'm going to add that. I just have a piece of square styrene that I've painted in the same colors, and I'm going to glue this, and I'll probably have to use some other type of glue because I don't think Elmer's would work for this, but I'm just going to glue it on the end, if you can see that, and it's going to match pretty well. One other thing I wanted to show you is that I'm actually going to be leaving a little bit of a ledge behind the retaining wall, and I'm doing that so that I can put some glue down there and put some ground foam to make it look like it's overgrown. One thing you'll notice is that I have these square blocks using weights to hold it down as the glue sets, and these are just square granite blocks that I got from Home Depot. They're samples that they have when you're looking at granite counters and so forth, and they work really well because, one, they're heavy, and two, they're square, and so you can use them for a variety of things, holding up the corners of buildings as you're gluing them and wanting them to set and things like that. So they work out really well, and they're free. Okay, the wall's had time to dry, so let's remove the blocks here. Yeah, there we go. That looks pretty good. Let's go put it on the layout. So I found that when I put it up against the wall that I had a little bit of a clearance problem as the cars were coming through here, and so what I ended up doing was peeling off the back layer of the cardboard, and I used a utility knife to get underneath there to separate it from the corrugation. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark where I want these backdrops to go on the backboard because they're slightly elevated and I want to get them in the right position. And so what I'm doing is I am marking in just a small place at the top with the pencil, and when I put these in I'm going to raise it up just a little bit. And I'm just trying to do it in a fairly inconspicuous place, and then we'll use the spray adhesive, and then we'll glue them on. Okay, I'm just going to use this spray adhesive. This is Testors, but you could use anything. Just nice and easy because it's in a spray can. I'm just going to spray this lightly. Okay, and I'm going to let that set for a second. Now I'm going to line these up. I'm going to set that down there. Line my marks up here. There and there. Bring it up just a bit. And then with the back of my hand, just gonna pat it down there, make sure that there's no wrinkles, which this works pretty well. If you make photocopies of your backdrops, you can put on a little bit heavier paper and that'll help it. The only problem with these is you have to cut the backdrop, or there's no sky, so you have to cut that out, but makes it for a very flexible backdrop. Okay, it's looking pretty good right now. I'm just going to stand the backdrop, or the retaining wall up there, give you an idea what that's going to look like. And I think it looks pretty good. We'll put some ground foam or some shrubs or whatever along the top of this so it'll help hide the edge. We'll put the ballast down here at the bottom. Make sure that blends all in. Maybe a few extra bushes as we move around towards the train shed. Okay, I'm ready to glue the retaining wall to the wall here. I'm going to use this Gorilla Glue constructive adhesive. So we're going to go ahead and press this up against there, and I'm going to then put these blocks against there to hold it in place, especially where I've got a little bit of a clearance issue. And we're going to let that dry. This turned out nicely. The retaining walls provide some three-dimensional detail, the buildings on the backdrop provide an additional layer of depth, and the clouds above provide for an even deeper view. In model railroad scenery, the key is often to use multiple layers, and I think we accomplished that in this scene. Thanks for watching the extended version of the 5-Minute Modeler, and hopefully you picked up one or two ideas or methods that you can use on your model railroad. If you like this episode, give it the old thumbs up and subscribe for future episodes.